Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. It's been a minute since I've posted much of anything on here, but I thought I would take a minute and do a little video on what direction the Midnight Panic mega truck is getting ready to take. So last time I posted any content of that truck was our trip to Mountain Home at the Sand Drags where we lost a head gasket. Now here we are in December and the status of the truck has not changed. It's sitting in the other side of the shop, has the same engine in it, same blown head gasket. I haven't really even touched the thing. But when we did have that incident with the engine, I kind of took a moment and thought maybe this would be a good opportunity to change directions with the truck. So for a long time, I've always thought it would be interesting to own and drive a monster truck, a full-blown competitive monster truck. That truck itself is actually built based out of a lot of rules and regulations that are listed in the MTRA rulebook. MTRA is a Monster Truck Racing Association. So when I was building that truck, I followed that book kind of loosely, just so if I decided to go that direction, it would not be hard to convert that truck into a full-blown competitive monster truck. So in short, here we are. Lost a head gasket, and if I'm going to do any changes with the engine, maybe I should make that more of a monster truck based engine. The 547 cubic inch blown injected big block that is in that truck is a little hot for monster truck racing, just in the fact that it's pushing the limits of some of the components that are in it. In monster truck events, you would want something more reliable, something you can depend on a little bit more than what that is. So I had all of the stuff here to build a spare engine for that truck. I drug it out, started looking at it, and decided it would be really pretty easy to put together a 472 cubic inch big block Ford, go with a smaller blower, dial it back a little bit, should still make well over 1,000 horsepower, probably closer to 1,300 horse, just being conservative on those numbers. So I put that combination together. I could put it in the truck and get it going again, and that was my plan. Well, then come September, I actually got the opportunity to jump in a full-blown race monster truck.
We go into racing bracket set, and it's Boss Gator that interrupts Stanley's run for a full sweep of the weekend. Again, first time in Boss Gator out of Nevada, Leroy Latham putting on, like I said before, second place all afternoon, taking the win and preventing Stanley Hernandez in the Lone Wolf from a full sweep of the weekend.
Now, if I hadn't convinced myself into turning this truck into a monster truck before, the hook was definitely set at this point. Myself, Allison, my wife Christina, sat down and had a conversation about maybe changing directions in what we do for a little while as far as the four-wheel drive off-road truck stuff. We've been doing multi-course event stuff with the buggy for a long time. We'll probably continue to do that. But, the monster truck lifestyle is looking kind of appealing. It looks like a lot of fun for a little while. So with that said, that is what we're going to do. Midnight Panic is going to become a full-blown competitive monster truck, or at least be as competitive as I can be with it. Now, fortunately for me, I'd kind of been researching and looking into this stuff since earlier this year. Actually, before I even had the body on the Midnight Panic truck. So since, probably March, April, somewhere in there. I've actually been looking for a lot of the components to build some of the stuff that we're gonna have to change on the truck. There are three major things that you're gonna have to change on this truck. And one, obviously, is the tires. One of the key components of a monster truck are 66-inch by 43/25 flotation tires. So I had a friend that had a set of those, and he needed a set of 54-inch tires that I had, so we made an even-steven swap. Tires are covered. I have a set of 10-ply Goodyears sitting out back right now, ready to go. The next major component would be the axles to hold up to those tires. Now, I'm a huge fan of the Axle Techs. That's what's under the buggy. That's what's on the mega truck. They've served me really well. That's a 9-ton axle, basically just the short end of it. I need a 20-ton axle. That's pretty much commonplace in all of monster truck racing, is a minimum of some type of 20-ton axle. A lot of them most of them are a hybrid axle. 20-ton Clark planetaries are super common, paired up with the Rockwell F106 center section. Pettibone pipe hands is another pretty common one. And then you have Rockwell PS 250s. And then outside of that, those are probably the three major ones. Outside of that, you'll run into a few places like Bigfoot themselves run a ZF planetary of some type. And I believe there's a couple other trucks that run that setup. For me, it's all about cost, what I can find locally, and what I can work with. After a little bit of research, I found out basically like a Clark 20-ton, albeit fairly expensive. They have a lot of aftermarket parts and support for them. So they can be made very strong. Biggest problem, that's what Monster Jam runs, and I believe the demand is pretty high, so finding a good deal on a set, yeah, it's pretty slim pickings. And if you do find a good deal, any replacement parts later on that aren't aftermarket, you're gonna pay out the nose for a set of corners, you know, from the champagne out. I'll get more into the components of this as we start building it. So I'm just kind of rambling on about what I was looking at and thinking about while gathering parts. Several years ago when I was building the Peterbilt, I was in a neighboring town looking for actually some dual air cleaner stuff for my Peterbilt truck. I was in a junkyard over there, and they had an old Pettibone crane. Now we're talking like 4 or 5 years ago I was over there. That junkyard was 40 miles down the road. I jumped in the truck, ran over there, and just asked around if that crane was still in the wrecking yard. They took me in the back, and they said they were just getting ready to scrap 2 cranes in the back lot there. So we went back and looked, and sure enough, that same Pettibone crane was sitting in the back. So that was the start. They gave me a price. I paid $1,000 for both axles out of the crane, and that pretty much selected for me what direction I was going to go with the axles. Like I said, the F106 Rockwell center section has been like a staple in the industry for the center chunk or the differential portion of the axles. It's kind of been proven that is almost getting to be a weak link in what they're doing with that. And a lot of guys are switching over to the Meritor 21-145 center chunk. That is pretty common in a lot of over-the-road trucks. It's a semi-truck rear differential. Now, the gear ratio has a wide range of gear ratio for that center section, and they're actually relatively reasonable. You can buy a whole assembled chunk off of eBay for about $750. So I looked into that a little bit, found a ratio that I liked, and I bought 2 of them. Easy peasy. So I have a set of 4 Rockwell corners, or a set of 4 Pettibone pipe hand corners and 2 21-145 center chunks. And that's where we're gonna start building the axles for the truck. Now, the final component of the 3, we got tires, differentials, the next is the engine. And that is pretty well sorted, with the exception of, obviously we see what happens when we lose an engine or a head gasket, even a minor component. When the engine's down, the truck is down. And if you're gonna race and do anything with a monster truck, you need to have it easily repaired and easy to get back going again. So I have the components to put together one 472 cubic inch big block Ford. After a little sniffing and digging around, I ended up picking up another matching block to my spare one, another set of heads to my spare heads, and currently right now sitting in the shop, I have everything to put together two aluminum headed 472 cubic inch big block Fords. So I will have one that I can run and one basically as a backup. If I have no issues with the engine throughout the season, when the wintertime rolls in, I can swap the spare engine in while freshening up the first one. Now, as far as the 547 cubic inch, the big engine that's in the truck now, once I get the smaller engine in and get everything dialed in on it, we'll take the big engine, the 547 cubic inch one with the 1471, all of that. I'll get it fixed and everything working on it like it needs to be. And then that one will be like the backup for the backup. Or if we're going somewhere where, you know, big horsepower might be really helpful, I'll have that one on standby. So we had trouble with the truck in August. And like I said, here we are, the middle of December. And the truck is in the same condition as it was in the last video that I talked about. It's not like I've just been, you know, sitting on my butt and not doing nothing. I've actually been working really constant and pretty steady on this thing, trying to get everything put together, getting parts sourced and all of that. It's just taken me a while to get in here and do this particular video. Talking to myself on the camera for YouTube is not my strong suit and it's not my favorite part, but it's something that I have to do. I had to get this video together so that I can move on and start posting, you know, good content. With that said, I have a lot of parts to build the differentials. As a matter of fact, I have probably 90% of the stuff that I need right here, right now to put a set of differentials together. Last week, I went up and picked up almost all of the components to put the two 472 cubic inch engines together. They were actually in Caldwell, Idaho, getting a bunch of machine work done to two blocks, two sets of heads, balance to crank, you know, all of the stuff that I need to put those two engines together. So there's good content coming and not just me talking. I don't know how I'm gonna go about stuff with the engine. I'm not an engine builder. I just assemble my own engines. I'm not gonna try and coach anybody through that. There's some really good engine builders on YouTube. I'm not gonna compete with those guys. I barely know what I'm doing when I'm just bolting these things together. The fabrication side on what we're gonna do with these, I gotta build custom hybrid differentials. Hopefully I can share some good content of that without it being too repetitious, you know. You guys can only stand to watch so much cut, grind, and weld, machine a couple parts. So I'll try and figure out how to keep that interesting, or at least interesting to me. Hopefully you find some use in it. Much like the engines, parts for the differentials, I need spares of that. So I've been gathering up what I can as far as pettibone parts. I think that having the spare planetary parts, knuckles, champagnes, axles, stuff like that will be really critical to keep a truck, you know, running and ready to go at any time. So the first set of pettibones that I bought, semi-local, I had those here. I have them now. And since choosing that direction, that's the component that I am going to use for my hybrid axles, I've been looking for good deals on those parts or machines that have those parts for a while. Since picking up the first set of axles, I have gathered up two more complete sets. One is actually a whole complete machine. Allison and I ran up to Montana, give a couple $1,000, loaded up an old carryall that had the right planetary and differential components, drove the machine on the trailer and brought it home. I have that whole complete machine sitting in the backyard here. Then there was another guy that wanted a set of axle techs. I had a spare set of axle techs and he happened to have a complete set of 4 pettibone corners. So where they actually, the inner knuckle or the champagne bolts onto the housing from there out. He had 4 of those. So right now I have 4 complete corners that I can use to build the differentials for the truck. And then I have 2 complete sets of spare parts. I don't know if I'll go through that many, but I will have them on hand and I will continue picking up those parts anytime I find a good deal as long as I can afford them. So this whole time I've been sitting here yakking at my phone, hanging on the end of a stick, walking circles in my shop. You've probably seen in the background, I actually have quite a bit of stuff going on. Quite a few parts going together. You know, progress is looking pretty good right now. But I have a lot of stuff to go. I have a lot of work to do yet. If there's anything in particular that you would like for me to focus on and you know, show more videos of it, leave a comment. Let me know what you'd like to see. I'll do my best to focus on those points and put something together that you know, might be helpful to somebody. As far as this video, I think I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off here. I've had enough talking, first of all, and I'd like to get back to the content that I like to put together, and that's more work, less talk. So I will try and do that for the next video. Thanks for watching, and have a good one. Now, with that said, and with the issue with the engine, I thought maybe, God, that was so good.